So should I be calling out all the speakers? Yeah, like I will start with Chjango, and Georgios, and Mike, and Bora. Let's go. All right. Thank you so much for coming. It's my honor to actually do a panel with all these stars. So we're gonna talk about interoperability today. I'll start off with an intro for each speaker, and I'll just give it to all the speakers to intro themselves. I'll start off myself. I'm a moderator for today's session. My name is John Park. I run a company called A41. It's a validator company, and we are focusing on node operations, and we do have a subsidiary that focuses on the GTM advisory called MOA or MOA, and we do a lot of investment as well, primary and secondary. So if you guys want to reach out to me, you can just find me anywhere. So I'll start off with Chjango. Let's go. Intro.
Hi, my name is Chjango Unchained. I'm an early contributor to the Cosmos ecosystem. I built the ecosystem from 0 to 1, and now we're over 100 app chains in mainnet and public testnet, or I count that as well. And so, yeah, glad to be here. I host a podcast called Interchain FM. It's also a validator, and I angel invest and, proselytize the Cosmos and interoperability era.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Georgios, co-founder of Axelar. I've been in the space for quite a few years now. My background is technical. Together with my co-founder Sergey, we both studied at MIT. Back in the day, we were part of the 3-person founding team of Algorand, which along with Cosmos around the same time, we're trying to build one of the first proof-of-stake networks. And more recently, for the last 4 years, we've been building Axelar. It's a cross-chain hub based on the Cosmos SDK. And we're doing work to connect all of the different ecosystems, Solana, Cosmos, Move, EVM, and excited to talk to all of you today.
Hey folks, I'm Mike. I'm with Archway. Archway is probably the dopest layer 1 protocol that you haven't heard of yet until today. What's cool about Archway is the protocol pays developers directly. And so if you build a great product and it's getting usage, you get paid a portion of the protocol revenues, and that's built into the protocol and totally automated. Archway is also a Cosmos-based chain, and so it's natively interoperable as an L1. You can kind of think of it as a launch pad for building cross-chain applications and kind of plugging directly into the greater multi-chain ecosystem.
Hi guys, I'm Bora, and I fell in love with the love of interoperability, joined Cosmos at the end of 2021 with Kepler Wallet and Osmosis. Right now I work for Ethos, and Ethos is the security coordination layer that powers new blockchains with the security. I'm really honored to be with the amazing people here. Yeah.
Thank you all. I'll fire off right away. So since our topic today is bridging, building bridges, and we're talking about interoperability and cross-chain world, let me start off with Mike on the question. How are you as an individual and your entity is approaching both interoperability and cross-chain world?
Yeah, so for me, I think about a few main reasons or drivers behind interoperability. I think it starts with scalability. There are limitations to how far a given chain can scale vertically. And so the need for, or sort of the driver around interoperability is offloading computation to multiple chains and allowing those chains to interoperate with one another in order to scale horizontally. Another driver would be sovereignty. Not everybody wants to live under the same system or rule set. Folks want to experiment with different types of governance, different economics, different security, and that's grounds for spinning up your own chain. For us as an L1, we're building an ecosystem of developers, builders, entrepreneurs, and so the main driver that really matters for us is allowing the builders in our ecosystem to expand their addressable market. And so allowing them to tap into new chains, new communities, that means they can access more users, more assets, more liquidity. And our approach is really, we're thinking about it in terms of like making sure that we've got a solid and secure foundation. That's why we've built on Cosmos, and we lean very heavily on IBC. We put a lot of love into simplifying the developer experience. It's hard enough to build in crypto within a given chain, let alone across chains. And then, we think very deeply about just how we can enable developers not only to build easier, but to build applications and experiences that really kick ass. And there's a lot that goes into that just the full stack of services and yeah.
I'll probably have to listen to what Georgios has to offer here as well. Like as an individual and as and your entity, how are you guys approaching interchain, not interchain, but interoperability and cross-chain world?
For us, interoperability is the main focus and the only focus of Axelar as a foundation. Our thesis, as Mike mentioned, is that there are going to be many chains, potentially thousands of chains. There's many drivers toward this future. I think the main one is just technical limitations around scalability, right? It's very, very hard to scale a single execution environment, especially the EVM has fundamental limitations. And if we expect billions of users to come in the space, there will have to be many different blockchains, and applications will have to own their own execution environment, right? And how we think about it is that in a world where each application lives on its own chain, a very big fraction of all transactions is going to be cross-chain. Because think about it, how you use applications today. Typically, you may go, even within a single chain, you may go do a swap on Uniswap, then maybe you go on Aave, you get a loan, you buy an NFT, and empirically, we've seen that 1 in every 4 transactions is across different applications. In a world where applications live on different chains, that implies that 1 in every 4 transaction, or 25% of all transactions, are going to be cross-chain, which makes interoperability crucial for the future of the space. And if we want to be able to offer seamless user experiences, we cannot expect users to change wallets, bridge, all of that has to be abstracted away, right? And so with Axelar, we're offering what we call programmable interoperability, which will allow users to access any application with any asset from any chain. We have to abstract away all the complexity behind the scenes, one wallet, and the users will never have to pay gas on multiple chains or ever have to think about chains, right? And I guess it's a next step of development in the cross-chain space after all the bridges that we've seen over the last few years.
Just a quick follow-up here. Coming from you two guys, on the layer 1 side, it seems enabling all these blockchain networks that are kind of isolated to communicate together under the name of cross-chain, right? Kind of leads to more scalability, probably new use cases and stuff like that. But when we just when I just kind of look at it from outside, I mean, I'm a validator company, but at the end, I'm just a spectator, right? And just a retail user, and as an individual. And if I look at this, I feel like for TVL though, isn't it going to be fragmented in a way, from L1's perspective, each L1's perspective? How are you guys seeing it? Because when I hear Axelar or Wormhole guys, you guys talk in all these podcasts saying that, it's going to enable interoperability will enable TVL growth, user experience growth, scalability wise, it's going to be better. But how do you guys actually see the TVL side of the thing?
Yeah, for Axelar, TVL is actually not a relevant metric. You may have seen what Circle did recently with the CCTP protocol, which allows native minting and burning. We're actually doing something similar with most of the new real-world assets issuers that are launching. And I think the new paradigm is one where you launch natively on many different chains, and then you use Axelar for natively minting and burning your assets, right? So there's no fragmentation. There's only one native version of the asset across various chains, and users will never have to think about wrapped assets in the future.
And let's move on to the next part. I'm quite curious about also in terms of challenges that you face as an Axelar, in reaching the cross-chain world. What are the challenges that you are trying to resolve this year and next year, so that you can approach this feature really faster? Because you're always kind of mentioned as like Wormhole and Axelar are two like, main contenders for cross-chain like transfer protocol, like communication protocol that's gonna like bring this like interoperability to us.
I'd say like the main challenges that we had to resolve on the infrastructure side have been resolved already, right? When we're starting out with Axelar, there were a lot of very centralized bridging solutions in the space, right, which ended up losing billions of dollars. So the first step was to actually build a decentralized network based on the Cosmos SDK, so that when you move information, when you move assets from one chain to another, you don't depend on a single founder or source that can be hacked anytime. You need to corrupt a majority of validators. We currently have 75 validators, like all big Cosmos chains, right? So from a security perspective, I think the main issues have been resolved. The other big issue was scalability, of course, because you see a lot of the existing solutions in the space offer pairwise connectivity, which has a lot of issues behind the scenes. With Axelar, inspired by the Cosmos Hub in the early days, we decided to connect everything to a single hub that's maximally secure. And then once you connect a new chain to the hub, you can route messages through the hub to any other chain. So it's a single point of integration, and you can get connectivity to 60 plus chains that we have in the ecosystem, right? So I feel like at this point, we have laid the foundation on the technical side. Now it's more about, BD work, awareness work, but most of the hard part is done already.
So this year you're going to focus more on BD side, and next year too.
Yeah, I mean, we're always scaling like the stack, but I think the hard work has been done, and there's a big focus on BD and just getting every application in the space. Like, Uniswap is using Axelar, Lido is using Axelar and Wormhole as well, but all of the big players are using either Axelar exclusively or Axelar and Wormhole, which is another nice solution in the space as well.
Curious to hear Chjango's view on interoperability as well, and what do we need, and from retail's perspective, a lot of the times when we talk about interoperability, we don't really talk about scalability, nor we don't talk about technical, difficulties around it. We just say, hey, it would be great to have a cross-chain swaps, and that's it, kind of, from, at least from my friend circles. How do you see, you're interviewing a lot of people, and you're also, you have envisioned with all the early Cosmos guys about this interoperable world or blockchains. So what's your view on what do we need and what's going to look like from the retail's perspective when that actually happens?
Yeah, from observing all the retail flow of this last bull market cycle and how people just apes into, ordinals, or they ape into Solana meme coins, myself included. Retail really doesn't really care about underlying infrastructure. And I know this is kind of beating a dead horse, but it's about UX. And so I think with all of the infrastructure we've built already, with each of these bespoke bridges, we're going to see an inflection point, and within 5 years, and that's being conservative, I think a lot of the bridges that we know today are either going to get hacked, they're going to die, or they're going to get abstracted away. And there's innovation going on right now, and I especially want to call out a project called Warp, which is built by Joseph Poon, Christopher Jeffrey, that crew, the Lightning Network plasma people, is that they're building chain-to-chain wrapping such that you would be able to do bridgeless transfers across different chains, like Bitcoin, natively to other chains, and all of this without needing any off-chain off-ramp, like using a SEX or using a multi-sig. And so this type of work are all step function improvements towards this greater standardization, towards interoperability. And I think teams and peg zones. I'm sorry, I think I'm using an archaic word now, so 2018, but I'm just that old. Peg zones like Axelar are there's only going to be one or two of them, a few of them that are going to persist and not die from being hacked from $100 million, some of the other bridges have. And so we're going to see a lot more standardization come to fruition, even though, and we're going to see more chains, right? Despite more chains being built on modular stack, there's still going to be some kind of cross-chain communication that needs to happen between them. And I think the era of the multi-sig and like single sequencer for doing the cross-chain transactions is not going to be long-lived, even though that's the status quo right now. So overall, we're going to see more aggregators like Jupiter in the front end just produce strictly better UX for the user, in that, why would I go to Radium if Jupiter gives me everything I need in terms of bridging liquidity in and doing swaps, aggregating all the available liquidity out there? And so I think, Squid Networks, projects like Initia, all of these are step function improvements towards giving the user a Web 2-like experience without trading off the decentralization or security. That's where I see the space going in the next 5-10 years. We're almost there.
Oh, you think we're almost there?
Soon, yeah.
I like to actually ask to Bora. I'll definitely put more highlight on Ethos as well. But I actually want to hear your personal view as a person who used to be at the Kepler, right? So hearing from Chjango that we're nearing that future. What was your hurdles and what was your experiences when it comes down to interoperability? As a Kepler is mostly very commonly used and a very popular wallet in the Cosmos eco, but in terms of cross-chain, I don't really consider it as the wallet that I would use for interoperability. And what was your experiences like? What was your plan, or how were you dealing with that when you were working on that?
Yeah, for sure. Everyone just mentioned there were a lot of fragmentations across the different blockchains. So I think definitely the UX should be improved in the more interoperable world. But I also wanted to point out that we really need some higher safety standards for smart contracts, reasoning about balances across the chains, or maybe some more improved mechanisms to ensure that funds that never get stuck, like what Chjango mentioned, right? There were a lot of UX related discussions, but I also really think that in this, where there's gonna be more chains, there should be a higher security standards across your chains.
And we're gonna go to the next question. I will start from you, Bora. And you're now moving to Ethos from Kepler, and a lot of people were surprised by the move, but in Korea she's famous. So how would the idea of restaking contribute to the cross-chain world from your vantage point?
Yeah, so I just wanna introduce Ethos for those who doesn't know yet. So at Ethos, our mission is to power sovereign L1s with the pool security of restaked ETH from the eigenlayer. So our approach is, through restaking, we fine-tune the focus to support the security of staked ETH and make it available to launch your own L1s. We have great validators like A41 that's helping us secure the new launching chains on Cosmos. So I believe the restaking will contribute to increased security and also provide more liquidity across the different blockchains.
I have something to add about restaking. So it's potentially a winner-take-all game where, restaking is a really good tool for unfragmenting or defragmenting the fragmented liquidity across different app chains or different rollups, because you're pretty much using a new token or points to incentivize people to stake their staked asset onto your platform to grow your TVL and so on. But as far as security goes, because these are staking tokens, there does need to be some kind of security. There has to be some kind of buffer to say how much can I limit how much of this can be restaked, because then you're removing liquidity. Okay, so if you think about stake is collateral to be put up for slashing in case there's some kind of infringement on the L1. So if that is being reallocated to farm another token being restaked somewhere to be used for something else, to like generate a derivative from to like be used in DeFi, then the underlying collateral for any native chain decreases, and so that does present a security risk. But that being said, if it's done safely, then restaking is actually a really great tool for defragmenting the fragmented liquidity across Cosmos ecosystem or across the modular stack.
Thank you, Chjango. I actually want to ask to Mike, and then I want to finish off with Georgios today. But so since we brought up the issue of restaking, and from L1's perspective, right? I consider restaking, like as a validator, it's like borrowing the economic security, and that's all I'm just like thinking about, right? Like all the security issues and all that. Yeah, there is an issue. And do we have a selection conditions that are like, that is really satisfiable? I don't think so. Nobody is like doing enough like risk analysis yet. But just purely from L1's perspective, right? And the founder of L1's perspective, when you get this like restaking hype, when you see that, like, what do you feel? Like, do you feel like you have to be part of it? Like, and like, I think Ethos will be opening that up for the Cosmos eco as well. So what's your view?
Yeah, we're definitely excited about Ethos, and we've chatted with the team. I think there could be some collaboration opportunities there. I think where, we've thought long and hard about how we can have a well-balanced and distributed network when it comes to the validator set and stake, and making sure that we're balanced across different dimensions, different geographies, stake distribution, making sure we've got just even distribution across the service providers that validators are running on. So I think it introduces a just kind of like a new era in being able to compose security for a network like ours from different sources. So the idea with an Ethos and Archway collaboration would be we would retain our independent validator set. Maybe we have 85% of the network secured by that, and the balance, the 15%, we may source from Ethereum by way of Eigenlayer, by way of Ethos, which is really exciting. I think there's just open questions around, like, what I'm trying to figure out is the economics of it, because we've had different versions of shared security within Cosmos, and the economics have just been silly. They haven't made any sense at all, and there's so much hype around Eigenlayer, and I am excited for it, but I do feel like we're sort of in that like Oprah meme phase where it's just like, here's Ethereum security for everybody, but there's a cost to it as well. And so we're trying to figure out, like, how much do we have to pay to properly sufficiently incentivize Ethereum stakers to stake, to secure Archway. And yeah, just finding that equilibrium.
So to kind of add some context to what you're saying, that model is one leg of an example of Sunny's mesh security, where mesh security would be the end game for all of this. So if two chains have pretty distinct validator sets, and you're utilizing your own staked assets as well as another chains, and you're kind of like doing this like cross-pollination, that does bolster economic security for underlying chains. No doubt about that. Problem is when it's reusing one validator set with one staking token, like Ethereum. On in the Eigenlayer case, if they're using that to basically rehypothecate the staked ETH to secure a bunch of different AVS chains, that's a problem. And in Cosmos, AVS modules is just another name for interchain secured app chains from like replicated security. It's not a new concept. So in the Cosmos case, the trade-off is you're trading off scalability because you're using the same validator set to increase its to support all these different chains while not necessarily earning more more staking tokens in return. So people are losing money by doing that. And so there is huge opportunity for us to explore ways to basically reach the end game of mesh security. And I think that, Ethos and Archway is doing, making strides towards that.
And actually, Ethos is implemented with mesh security contracts. They're the ones
Nice.
that finished them and brought them to production.
Cool. Yeah. So I think it's fair to say that, if your takeaway from this panel is that Cosmos is ahead of the game. Cosmos is pioneering. We're the leaders of mesh security, where EigenLayer is just starting. No shade on EigenLayer. I mean, I have an EigenPod, so.
I mean, we can go on and on about for another hour. I mean, we can switch the topic to restaking, and then I can go for like 3 hours in a row and like bring in other validators too. But anyways, Georgios, like final question to you is that since like, from our today's talk, it's like restaking is also kind of adding or contributing to another angle to this cross-chain world. And as one of the like forefront runners for this cross-chain world, as like, the pioneer of like interoperability, like what do you see that Axelar like will like how will you guys approach restaking as well, like from Axelar's point of view?
Yeah, so restaking to me it's mostly about decentralization, and John, you mentioned about slashing and the game theory is complicated. I think if you look at its core, what restaking is just the ability to decentralize the validator set with more stakers, right? And ETH is already very decentralized, Atom as well. So to me, the end game is one where Axelar is secured by all kinds of different assets, right? And the biggest chains we connect can also elect a validator set on Axelar, right? At the end of the day, if it is the hub that connects all of the chains, it needs to be maximally secure, and every chain that depends on Axelar for its cross-chain connectivity should have a say in how the validators are selected. And personally, I think most of the security in the crypto space comes from decentralization anyway, right? Even on existing proof-of-stake networks, the slashing is very weak, and the incentive is mostly, to operate your validator based on your reputation, based on other things. So as long as we can maximally decentralize through restaking and similar mechanism, but not just from ETH, also Atom and other big assets in the space, I think that's probably the end game for Axelar and the whole space, right? Like everyone will have maximal decentralization, maximal security, and all chains will be on similar levels of security.
I think we can add 2 more sessions after this, one on validator economics and another session on are we really decentralized, and then we go into like very spicy discussion. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for and thank you so much for listening to us as well. I think we can actually wrap it up now. And thank you so much for listening.
Close with one little visual for you guys in case Cosmos is still mystifying for people. So in Cosmos, the parts are greater than the sum, or the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And so by composing these different app chains, by cross-pollinating our validator sets and our tokens, then the security budget for each app chain, potentially if we reach mesh security's endgame, then is the equivalent of the total AUM of the entire network. So that's just, we like to call it the mycelium effect. Yeah. Okay. Whereas like monolithic chains are trees in a forest, Cosmos are the mycelium, the mushroom on the ground.
Agreed, and Cosmos was definitely ahead of its time. And John, if you don't mind, since we have another
go ahead.
1 or 2 minutes, just to end on a positive note. Myself, I spent a lot of time, in the US. I went to college there, was 4 years for Algorand. Last year, I've been in Asia, traveled a lot, like in Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, Korea, Japan, and it's amazing to see here how, welcoming the whole community, but also the regulatory bodies, how they're providing guidance, right? You can see initiatives like Project Guardian under the MAS in Singapore. And, we can argue whether regulation is good or bad, but there is a lot more clarity here, right? So we see a lot of the growth, especially on a lot of the real world asset, financial institution initiatives that we're actively working on. There's a lot of growth out of the region. So excited to stay here for the coming years and build with all of you.
Mike and Bora, if you guys want to add, you guys have 30 seconds each.
If you're new, launching a new chain on Cosmos, let's chat. And thank you so much, John, for moderating. Stake with A41. Yeah.
Stake with A41 indeed. But yeah, if you want to connect about interoperability, Cosmos, Rust, Cosm, Wasm, smart contracts, find me at some point after the talk. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.